event here in Washington, D.C. for a program entitled Heroes of Liberty, Enhancing Well-Being, Resilience, and Civic Engagement of Ukrainian Veterans. You know, in preparing for this particular event, I thought to myself, well, what is the makeup of a veteran? What is the soul of a veteran? And I found a very pertinent and timely article within the Washington Post of an op-ed from a soldier named J. Mark Jackson, who served in the 2nd Cavalry Regiment of the 82nd Airborne Division and the 101st Airborne Division in the War of Afghanistan in 2009. In his poignant op-ed, he mentions what it means to be a veteran, and I quote, "I was a soldier, and I went to war. By and by, I became known as a veteran. My civilian career progressed, my family grew, and the Army drifted into the gray mist of memory. But the experience of military service leaves an indelible imprint on the psyche and the soul of each soldier, airman, sailor, and Marine." Well, what does it mean on a day-to-day basis to be a veteran? The author of the particular op-ed continues, and he states, "Feeling slightly self-conscious at my child's grade school on Veterans Day, but also feeling important and honored. Having a mother say, 'Thank you for your service, because you served, my son did not have to.' Feeling positive about the next strong and dedicated generation of future veterans to whom we handed the baton of service." He ends his op-ed with even further poignant remarks. What would most veterans say about their time in the service? I know, and I do, say the following, that further and more important, I consider it an honor to have served my country. Today, we have brought together an entire host of specialists to bear witness to Ukraine's current fight for its territorial integrity against all forms of Russian aggression. This was not a war that was brought upon by the Ukrainian people. In fact, it was only the will of the Ukrainian people that have stood fervently in defense of their country from Russia's 2014 invasion in eastern Ukraine and Putin's illegal annexation of the Crimean Peninsula almost 6 years ago. But it is a war that is not just a historical war. It is a war that is happening today. In fact, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson yesterday issued a statement about the latest attack in Ukraine, and I quote, "Russia's hybrid military forces have attacked Ukrainian positions at Bisky, with 2 Ukrainian soldiers reportedly killed and 9 injured. A united international response is definitely in need in order to stop Russian aggression. Our thoughts are with the families and of our fallen heroes." End quote. This reminds me of a manuscript that was written in 1839 that is still relevant today. That manuscript, known as About the War in Eastern Ukraine, which is continuing, and our efforts on how to mitigate and to stop that particular war. It is an honor and a pleasure to introduce our first speaker for this morning's event. She is the co-chair of the Congressional Ukrainian Caucus. Many of you know her extremely well. I consider her to be one of my mentors here in Congress, as we had formed the Congressional Ukrainian Caucus back in 1997. It is truly an honor and a pleasure to introduce to the podium the Honorable Marsy Kaptuur.
I keep forgetting. We have to go like this. Didn't Michael do a phenomenal job? Thank you, Michael, for hosting us here today and for your phenomenal work on behalf of liberty, especially now in Ukraine. And we are here today, as the monitor says, to reflect on our heroes and heroines of liberty, enhancing well-being, resilience, and civic engagement of Ukrainian veterans. Ambassador Yelchenko, it's so wonderful to see you again. Thank you so very much for coming today. As Michael mentioned, as co-chair of the House and Congressional Ukraine Caucus, I wish to welcome all of you who have traveled at great personal expense and taking time away from other events to be with us today to help celebrate heroes and heroines of liberty. I am grateful to the Ukraine Congress Committee of America, the Embassy in Ukraine, and Olia Film Studios for sponsoring this critical event, and so timely. I want to particularly thank Ola Onishko, I don't know if she's in the audience today or not, for her efforts to so poignantly share the story of Ukrainian veterans. Isn't she a talent? What a talent. What a heart, what a mind, what an artist. Thank you all very much. And I want to thank Nicholas Kazbini-Gore of my own staff. Many of you have met him already. Nicholas, stand up. Thank you for being here today and for helping us. I wanted to also again recognize Ukraine's ambassador to the United States, Volodymyr Yelchenko. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. You have so many Thank you. Also with us today is the Deputy Minister of Veterans Affairs, Alexander Tereshchenko, I believe. Alexander, thank you. Member of the Parliament, Yana Zinkevich. We can't thank you enough for coming today. We hope you will feel very welcome and that we will see you time and time again. We know what a critical time this is for your country, and you are here today. We are your partners in the quest for liberty. Since 2014, as Michael mentioned, Russia's war in Ukraine has caused the death of close to 14,000 people and displaced millions more. It is a war not only against Ukraine, but against democracy in Europe itself, as has been referenced. I say in many speeches, Ukraine is the scrimmage line for liberty in Europe in our modern era. Through hybrid warfare, Russia seeks to sow division in democratic institutions, including especially NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the European Union, many other countries around the world, including here in the United States of America. Ukrainian service members are thus not only protecting Ukraine's territorial sovereignty, but also our allies in Europe and democracy around the world. They hold high the torch of liberty and are fighting every day for that hope. Yet, as we know from our own experience with American service members, while Ukrainian soldiers face down Russian aggression on the front lines, very fierce aggression, their fight does not end when they leave the battlefield. It continues when they return home as veterans. Ukrainian veterans often face similar challenges as any veteran, as American veterans when they return home. Ukrainian veterans can fare difficulty reintegrating into society. They have been on high alert and they have seen what most of humanity will not. They often struggle to overcome both physical and invisible wounds of war, including the effects of post-traumatic stress and many related neurological conditions as well as physical. According to recent statistics, over 1,000 veterans of the current war have committed suicide. Many more struggle with social reintegration and finding fulfilling employment opportunities, which are so critical to well-being. Indeed, there are still thousands of Ukrainian veterans from the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan who also need critical veteran services. I have met some of them. I asked one of them, I said, "Why did you fight?" The answer, fear. Fear of then the Soviet retaliation against soldiers who did not fight. Fear rather than hope. When I was in Ukraine in 2018, I visited with a family outside of Zhytomyr. The father had served in the Soviet army during the invasion of Afghanistan. His son had just come back from his third tour on the front lines in the Donbass. His mother had to sell vegetables in their garden to ensure their son had all the military supplies he needed. Both the father and the son shared with me their challenges of post-traumatic stress and the lack of support services available to Ukrainian veterans like them. Here in America, at one point I was traveling in the state of Connecticut where there's a very large Ukrainian American Veterans Association, and I ended up in a veterans center in that state. And I was going and shaking hands with all the veterans who were there, and because I'm of East European heritage, they thought I spoke Ukrainian, which I did not, I'm sorry to say, but this veteran was there, and he looked at me, and he started talking in his own language, and he started to shake, and he literally had a breakdown in my arms. And I tried while I was there in the Bridgeport area to try to find a doctor in Connecticut to care for him who spoke his language. I shall never, ever, ever forget that experience. And he had fought in the Soviet army in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, in the Soviet era, behaviorally related conditions were also politicized and used to punish political dissidents. So in helping to heal, we must overcome the Soviet-era stigma and provide veterans with the high-quality care they have earned and deserve, both in terms of physical injury as well as neurological conditions that register right in the human brain and can be unwound medically as we understand biochemical imbalance in the central nervous system, and society is very naive about all of that. So we are here for important work, for Ukraine and actually for ourselves as we create a partnership for veterans. Thankfully, the Ukrainian government established the Ukrainian Veterans Affairs Ministry, and I was pleased to champion the successful efforts to dedicate $5 million to the U.S. Agency for International Development to increase understanding of veterans' needs and boost institutional capacity to care for veterans in Ukraine. I am also fortunate and grateful to represent many Ukrainian Americans in the state of Ohio with medical expertise in treating veterans in our own veterans hospitals and centers, as well as outpatient clinics. And I'm pleased to report that the Ukrainian American Veterans Association is represented here today. For instance, doctors in my region are very, very interested in helping to shadow, have doctors from Ukraine come to the United States, come to some of our veterans centers, shadow these Ukrainian American doctors, some of whom have served for 3 decades healing veterans, to show them what is possible and to have a regular training exchange so that we can help Ukrainian doctors and advanced practice nurses help heal, not just here, but also in Ukraine. So I'm hoping, one of the reasons I'm here today, you can hear this message. How can we work together on increased exchanges between Ukrainian and American service providers to strengthen care for veterans? I have complete confidence in the intelligence of the Ukrainian people and the American people and their very noble work in helping veterans. We have to help that occur on a more regular basis. By promising to care for veterans when they return home from the battlefield, we are not only boosting Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russian invasions, but also sending a message to Russia that Ukraine can treat its veterans with respect and with the honor they deserve. In conclusion, I wish to thank you again for attending this critical panel session. With your leadership and engagement, I am sure we will be able to make a difference in the lives of Ukrainian veterans and help those who fight for liberty every day have the service when they come home that can help them either return to theater or live a normal life with their families and be contributing members of their community. Thank you so very much for being here.